Imagined communities can be loosely thought of as a group of people who need never actually know or meet each other, but nonetheless share a perceived bond based on shared icons, experiences, and sense of identity. This means that imagined communities can be anything, really, from a band fandom to a football team supporter base. But the most important imagined communities are nations. And today, media is responsible for creating much of our national identity. But how? And how did we get here? In 16th century Europe, there were a lot of illiterate people who were really only connected to their immediate neighbours. As books were distributed by national governments, suddenly people on opposite sides of a country had something in common. Books homogenized language and culture within national borders, and populations were suddenly culturally self-aware. Newspapers were the next big leap, giving populations their first taste of a shared sense of time, as whole populations could digest the same content on the same day. Radio and TV amplified this effect, as dominant national broadcasters deliver identical content at the same time. Combined with spectrum scarcity and regulation, this meant that by and large people were getting the same content. And whether they were in Melbourne or Cairns or Sydney or Hobart, Australian families who would never meet could sit down together and experience the same things at the same time. So now, people already bound by language and culture were also being delivered a set of shared experiences and cultural reference points with time symmetry. This is thought of as the peak of media's fortification of a singular national identity. And some people loved it, like this guy and this guy. They thought that some amount of homogenization was good because it led to better public participation, feeling of citizenship, and social well-being. So these people are not happy about where things are now. Globalization in this context essentially refers to more capitalism and more communication. A free market means commercial content, and this is important because it undermines the hegemony of culture and content that broadcasters once had. These guys are mad because it dumbs down content by just giving people what they want. Advances in communications technology, like the telegram or the internet, undermines the nation as the primary imaginary community because now people can develop communities anywhere. Of course, this doesn't mean that the world is suddenly one big, happy, imagined community. In fact, modern commercial formats, such as reality TV, have still been said to reinforce some parts of our national identities. But as people connect more with people, content, and ideas of their choosing, it leads to social fragmentation. Some people are happy about this, though. The main criticism is, if an imagined community creates an us, then it has to create a them, and probably demonizes the them. This isn't really a shock. Nations don't like each other. The real problem is that a singular national identity foisted on a population by media will necessarily exclude people who don't fit the mold, citizens included. And since the icons and stories and identities portrayed by the media reflect largely white European colonial, patriarchal, heteronormative worldviews, there are going to be a lot of people who don't fit this mold. So these critics are happy to see the fragmentation of media. Government-funded multilingual news, commercial content delivered to minority interests, and the general rise of progressive values in news reporting. But just because nationalism in the old sense is on the decline, doesn't mean that media's role in uniting people is any less significant. Perhaps the most telling example of this in Western states is the emergence of stringent political imagined communities. In much the same way as it shapes nations, partisan media reporting has resulted in each side caricaturing the other. Partisan news coverage has been a particular problem for sites like Facebook, and with more and more people getting news from social media, people are, despite all the information at their fingertips, choosing to exist in echo chambers that prescribe and reinforce the identity of their political imagined communities, in much the same way that government broadcasting once did. It could even be speculated that this divide between left and right, and the rise in white nationalism, could be a consequence of the decline of the public sphere and the fragmentation of the media, a backlash against the perceived overstepping of the left-wing media as traditionally marginalised voices are being heard. Regardless of political position, though, the important thing to take away is an understanding of the importance and characteristics of imagined communities, and a recognition of the vital role that media plays in shaping them.